I'm hoping I can keep this fast. Just a quick note. I had my game today. We'd been going a little while without being able to play, so we put together this longer Saturday edition as my wife and daughter are out. I thought, hey, I got Saturday night free. Why not game? Well, we gamed. It was big, but one of the upshots was had our first player character death. Happened in a pretty good tense moment at the end of the session, kind of how it should be. The interesting thing that I think that happened was I had the confluence of events that I always love when it takes place. The party was making their way back to the Caves of Chaos, which they are trying to explore and cleanse, so to speak. They had had some goblin prisoners. They'd taken them, released them. Well, I rolled up a random encounter as they were approaching the woods or wandering monsters, and it was the goblins. So it turned into this encounter with their goblins who were prisoners now of hobgoblins being led through the woods. Hobgoblins were armed with swords and whips. They got into it. One of the characters rushed ahead, did a really cool critical hit that ended up killing one hobgoblin with their crossbow. But then after a couple rounds, as other folks were coming in, because he raced ahead of the party, got critical hit with a whip. Now, in kind of a fun little moment, as part of narrating the critical hit that took him down essentially to negative hit points, I talked about how the whip wrapped around his neck and the goblin or hobgoblin, in this case actually, pulled him in, kind of got him in a chokehold. I then had the other hobgoblin who was there kind of put a knife to his side and sort of messaging in a sense to do that whole, surrender or we'll kill your friend kind of thing. Well, the party was having a hard time coming to grips with it, and as they were struggling and we were in turns, the player character was just slowly losing hit points or hero dice, which is how I do kind of negative hit points, and was dying. And I gave them a 5-minute break, and it was funny because the one player was saying, listen, if you do something and it doesn't work out and the character dies, that's fine. But if you don't do anything, they're going to die, and that's not fine. So just you have to do something, right? Don't let him die because you don't do anything. Let him die because you do something. Well, the player tried to do something, use some of these hero dice I have in my system to add some advantages. I did say that the one hobgoblin who had cover because he was basically had in the kind of classic terrorist position behind his victim, missed all 3 attacks, at which point the other hobgoblin who had the dagger just stuck it in his side. I did roll for damage. It was enough to eliminate the rest of the hero dice. The character died. Right after that, they were able to defeat those hobgoblins and do a couple other things, and I let the player whose character died, I let him take over one of the hirelings. We're not sure whether ultimately he will continue playing that hireling or create another character or whatnot, but it will allow him to keep on playing while he figures out what he wants to do next. And that's how we ended the night, with the somber scene of the battlefield with their friend laid low. It was a great moment. It was kind of, I want to say, almost nice that it happened. I felt like they'd been dancing around being able to do a lot and have been lucky and frankly smart enough but also definitely lucky in not having to pay the price. Well, now they know that price will sometimes get paid. This player definitely acts impulsively, and they did take this impulsive action to kind of move ahead of the rest of the group. That left them kind of unsupported, and it was during that time when they were unsupported that they took that fatal blow. But it was a great night, and I always love when the dice and things just seem to come together. And rolling up that wandering monster check that turned into the goblins, that turned into hobgoblins, bringing back these goblins that had left earlier with the players, just made a nice moment and kind of wrapped around some of the things that was happening, but in a way that I could never have predicted. Made for a great session. Rest in power. Fitz felled by a hobgoblin spear or hobgoblin whip and dagger. He'll be missed, but I'll be really interested to see what the next character that player comes up with. I'll go through all this in a lot more depth, but it just happened, so I thought I would talk about it. That's all I got. Game on. Talk to you later.
Hexed.